New car prices continue to go up. According to the latest data from Kelley Blue Book, the average new car buyer paid about $48,600 in February. The average electric vehicle buyer paid $55,000. And with the threat of tariffs looming, sticker prices could go even higher, thousands more per vehicle in the next few months. If you're in the market for a new set of wheels, you really need to do your homework. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
In this episode, the top picks and the latest reliability ratings from Consumer Reports. Also, advice for anyone in the market for an electric vehicle. Do you still need to worry about charging stations? And why used car prices are going to cost even more this year. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Let's start with my good friend Mike Quincy from Consumer Reports Autos. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going today?
Great. For those listening, I've known Mike for about 25 years now. You've helped us with all sorts of car stories, and it's great to have you on the podcast again.
It's good to be your Consumer Reports car guy.
You helped me buy my last two vehicles, by the way. So for this year's auto issue, CR-rated cars from 32 brands on reliability, owner satisfaction, safety, and road test scores. This makes it easy for buyers to see which brands shine and which they might want to avoid. The top 5 remain unchanged from last year's results, but there is one significant shift. Subaru claimed the top spot from BMW by a single point in its overall score. Tell us about that.
Subaru became really the number one brand in Consumer Reports brand reliability rankings, mostly because they do pretty conservative redesigns. They're not bringing in new powertrains. They're not bringing in new platforms. The Subaru Forester has just been redesigned. And again, it's not a radical redesign. They're using tried and true engines and transmissions. Certainly the styling looks the same. These are the things that have made Subaru do so well in Consumer Reports testing, as well as reliability surveys, because they're not bringing in a whole new engine. They're not doing lots of EVs. They're not doing plug-in hybrids. So they're kind of sticking to what they know works.
Lexus moves from 5th to 3rd place. CR says not through its own improvements, but because Porsche and Honda slid slightly.
Lexus is usually one of those top performers. They're real stalwarts. The Lexus RX, it only got an average reliability ranking in Consumer Reports reliability surveys. Now, for a lot of car companies, they think average, well, that's not too bad. But for Lexus, that is way below par. So that's one of the reasons that Lexus has dropped a bit.
So Audi was a big mover this year, climbing 6 spots to be ranked number 6, and Mini and Acura lost positions due to lower predicted reliability scores.
Yeah, Audi in some ways is kind of taking a page out of the Subaru playbook in that they're not radically redesigning their cars. A lot of their models are older designs, the A4, the A3, the A6. These cars have been around for a while, and this really allows companies like Audi to kind of work out the bugs. The general mindset among Consumer Reports reliability advice, I guess, if you want to call it that, is don't buy a new car in its first design. And as you know, I mentioned, a lot of the Audi lineup has been around for a while and has really worked the bugs out.
A few more noteworthy changes this year. Buick slid 4 places to 17th because of lower road test scores.
They don't have a super exciting lineup. They did introduce a few new models, and with that comes some teething issues that a first model year design is going to bring. But if you're kind of rooting for Detroit, you're rooting for the home team, Buick is the top domestic brand.
Cadillac tumbled 7 spots to land at 21st, and that was due mainly to the well below average reliability of its Lyriq EV.
Yeah, that is really a problem that is throughout the General Motors lineup. They're having just a devil of a time working out the bugs with their electric vehicles. Certainly in Consumer Reports experience, the Lyriq and the Blazer EV in Consumer Reports test fleet, we've seen a lot of issues. But just a reminder for all of your listeners out there, Consumer Reports does not base reliability on our one, sample of our test car. It's instead based on hundreds of thousands of responders in Consumer Reports Reports reliability surveys.
And at the back of the pack, and I mean back, the lowest rated brands, GMC, Land Rover, Rivian, and Stellantis brands, Alfa Romeo, Dodge, and Jeep.
Well, in some ways, it's not too surprising with Rivian. They are still a pretty new startup. They have not mastered the art of mass production. When we're talking about new designs, usually showing to have more reliability issues, everything in Rivian is new. So if you want to be an early adopter, that's one thing. You want to be the first on your block to have the brand new Rivian or the brand new whatever. You kind of got to roll the dice here, because it's better to wait a couple more years before, a company like Rivian figures out the methodology of building reliable models.
When we've talked about this before, you've always reminded me that even high-scoring brands can have low-scoring models. For example, the Toyota Camry is a clear winner, while Toyota Tacoma did poorly for road tests and predicted reliability.
Right. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but the Tacoma is a brand new redesign, and it turned out to be below average in our reliability surveys. The BZ4X, which is the weirdest name for an electric vehicle I've ever heard of, is Toyota's EV. That has also turned out to be below average. And while the Tundra, Toyota's big pickup truck, has been out for a couple of years, they're still having issues with their reliability. So kind of uncharacteristic of Toyota to have even any models in our below average ranking.
So let's move on to what everyone looks for every year in the annual auto issue, the top models of the year, your top picks. First of all, let's explain how these are picked. When you test cars, I've watched you do this up at the test track in Connecticut. You really push vehicles to the limits for steering and braking, and you check those safety features, as well as just drive them around for a long time.
Yeah, that's kind of how we get things done here. As you and everyone out there knows, Consumer Reports buys its own test cars. We don't get anything free from the manufacturers. We put about 2,000 break-in miles on all of our test cars to make sure they're operating at peak efficiency. Then we take them off the road and bring them to our track. All of our over 50 instrumented testing, including handling, braking, fuel economy. We measure noise. We get a jury of testers together. We talk about seat comfort. We go over the controls and infotainment system. And really, what we're looking at with Consumer Reports' top picks is the best of the best. These are the vehicles that really rose to the top of our rankings.
So some of this is subjective, such as comfort, judged by a number of people, and some of this is clearly objective, how well the brakes did, the acceleration, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And we're also looking at high levels of standard safety features. For a vehicle to be a top pick, it has to come standard with automatic emergency braking that works at both low speeds with pedestrian detection and at highway speeds. So it isn't so much that a vehicle might do well in our testing. It still has to come through on the safety front.
And these vehicles on the top 10 pick list all had high scores for owner satisfaction and predicted reliability. And it's interesting to note that you don't have to break the bank to get many of these models. I was really surprised. I mean, this small car winner, Nissan Sentra, starts MSRP at $21,500.
Exactly. You shouldn't just have to pay through the nose to get a great car. And the Sentra is one of those great examples. It got about 32 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing, which is, great because it is a small sort of economy car. But what Nissan did is they put a lot of time and effort into tightening up the chassis. It handles really well. I'm not going to say it's like a BMW 3 Series sports sedan, but it will definitely surprise you just how responsive the steering is. The controls are super easy. It's a simple car to live with, and I'm really glad that in our world of super complicated cars, you have a vehicle like the Nissan Sentra that just anyone can get in, and within 30 seconds, they can operate all the controls.
The top pick for midsize car, the Toyota Camry.
This should be a surprise to no one. The Camry has been a top performer for decades, but the big news of the Camry is that all models are now hybrid powered. That's a great way for people to kind of ease into electrification, and the magic number here is 48 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing. About $32,000 for like an SE trim like we tested. It comes really well equipped, and the handling will surprise you. People think Camry is boring. Definitely not a boring car to drive. If you're in the sedan market, definitely give the Camry a try. It'll probably surprise you just how good it is.
Well, I have a Camry. Actually, I have two because of you. Best vehicle I've ever had.
Glad I didn't steer you wrong.
I get it, steer me wrong. That was very clever, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's move into the SUV category. Subpacked SUV, the top pick was the Subaru Crosstrek.
Yeah, Subaru is all over Consumer Reports' top picks as well as the brand reliability rankings. The Crosstrek got a recent redesign, and it continues to be a solid sort of urban runabout. There's a little bit higher ground clearance, so if you live where it snows, you've got standard all-wheel drive to pull you out. About 29 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing. A decently equipped model comes at around $28,000, which really isn't bad considering that the price of a new car hovers around $48,000. So when you're looking for a vehicle that's comfortable and really good in all kinds of weather, I'd definitely check out the Crosstrek.
And for compact SUV, it's a Subaru Forester.
And here we are with Subaru once again. Subaru was very careful in their redesign of the Forester. They didn't want to break what was really working. And one of the great things about the Forester is it has really superb visibility. And when you're sitting in the driver's seat, the front roof pillars are not very thick. The rear roof pillars are not very thick. There's lots of glass area all around. And the seat is sort of at hip height when you go to sit into it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if people in your audience have parents that are getting a little bit older, but they're still driving, the Forester is one of those models where we always recommend for older drivers because of good visibility, because it's easy to get in and out of. It's super reliable at 29 miles per gallon overall. The Forester is really an easy vehicle to recommend.
And for midsize SUV, it's the Toyota Highlander Hybrid.
The Highlander Hybrid has long been kind of a really good family vehicle. And by family, I mean it's bigger than a RAV4, but it's not so big that you're driving around a huge tank. We got 35 miles per gallon overall for the hybrid model. And if you're a road trip guy like me, what that translates to is to a near 600-mile day of driving before you have to fill up. And that really gets me going. I love the highway cruising ability of this model. It has tons of safety features. Every year, it just always seems to come around to be a top pick. If you need a family-sized vehicle, definitely check out the Highlander.
Small pickup, it's the Ford Maverick and Maverick Hybrid.
Ford has definitely figured this out. We love especially the hybrid model. It still puts out about 191 horsepower, so it can get out of its own way. But this is the real kicker. 37 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing. For even a small pickup truck, that's amazing. It has simple controls, very easy to live with. The last time I checked, Ford just can't even keep these in stock. So if you want a small, not everyone needs a huge 2500 series or 1500 series pickup truck. For most homeowners, a small pickup truck like the Maverick will absolutely get everything you need to get done on the weekends.
And finally, electric vehicle, that was the Tesla Model Y.
The Model Y is the lone electric vehicle on Consumer Reports' top picks list. Not that there weren't other worthy models, but none of them combines the performance and the reliability of the Model Y. It gets about 311-mile cruising range. Of course, depending on the weather, if it's colder, you're going to get a little bit less. But for about $50,000, you're getting a dose of luxury, practicality. Tesla really knows how to dial in a superb chassis. This car has really good handling, feels more like a sports car than a sedan. You have lots of convenience items inside. There's lots of places to store things. If you want to go all electric, definitely check out the Model Y.
And Mike, I need to say this because some people just don't want to buy Teslas right now for political reasons. There are 5 other EVs on CR's recommended list that earned higher overall scores than the Model Y. The BMW i4 and i5, Porsche Taycan, Ioniq 6, Genesis GV60, and the Kia EV9 had the same overall score as the Model Y, 73.
Excellent point. Glad you brought that up.
We couldn't cover all 10, but you'll find all the top picks at Consumer Reports website, consumerreports.org, or in their new auto issue, something I look forward to every year. Up next, more about EVs, a look at what's new in electric vehicles, CR's latest advice on range anxiety, and an update on EV reliability. I'm Herb Weisbaum, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Sooner or later, your car will need some repair work. Checkbook has ratings for hundreds of auto repair shops in these metro areas: Boston, Chicago, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. If you live in or around one of these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Get a free 30-day subscription with access to all of our ratings by going to checkbook.org/consumerpedia.
So as we just discussed, the Tesla Model Y was CR's top pick for electric vehicle, but there are a dozen 2025 EV models on your recommended list. Quite a selection now, Mike, from the Kia Niro in the $40,000 price range to the Porsche Taycan that starts at $100,000 and goes up to $230,000. You can get an electric BMW, Audi, Hyundai, and Genesis, and they all had overall scores higher than the Tesla. So a lot of selection coming to this marketplace, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, the trick that the automakers are facing is how can they actually make a profit selling EVs? The development costs are very high. And that is one of the reasons why most EVs are super expensive. Now, as we talked about the Tesla Model Y being a top pick, you can get into an EV for less money. For example, the Tesla Model 3 starts around $42,500 before tax credits, and that could drop it down to the mid-30s. And we just bought a Chevrolet Equinox EV for our test fleet, which costs us about $35,000. So there's definitely something for everyone.
A lot of people who want to go electric have range anxiety. Will they be able to find a charger on the road when they need one? And in the new auto issue, CR editor Keith Barry writes, those worries are not unfounded. Although most modern EVs have a range of over 250 miles on a full battery and the number of public chargers has more than doubled since 2020, charging one still requires more time and planning than filling up a gas tank. The pros at our Auto Test Center in Colchester, Connecticut have been driving and evaluating EVs for more than a decade. Their first piece of advice, if you can't charge at home, an EV might not be for you. I was greatly surprised to read that.
I think a lot of people get wrapped up with the idea of an EV because you're not buying gasoline and they want to do something different. But Keith is right on the money. I mean, one of the reasons to consider buying a Tesla is they have a supercharging network throughout the country, which is really good. It's very robust. But the public infrastructure is definitely an issue. There are a number of places where you can publicly charge your EV, but there might be a waiting line. Half the time, the chargers don't even work. You're kind of walking a tightrope if you're just relying on an EV for your sole means of transportation, especially if you go on any kind of a road trip. It's kind of a big ask, but if you're going to have an EV in your household, it's probably a good idea to also have an old-fashioned internal combustion engine vehicle as well, just in case you want to go on a longer trip. We're getting there, but we're not there yet.
And something folks should know, EVs are getting more reliable, but based on your tests, they still lag behind hybrids and gas-only cars for reliability.
100% correct. On average, EVs now have about 42% more problems than internal combustion cars, but that is down from 79% from the previous year. So as we talked about when we consider vehicle overall reliability and we go then to EV reliability, it's still not as good as internal combustion, but it is getting better.
It's interesting because there are not as many parts, but I guess it's just because it's a totally new design for an engine. That's why we're having the problems?
In Consumer Reports reliability surveys, owners are reporting powertrain issues and EV charging malfunctions. I mean, the ability, for example, for the vehicles themselves to accept the charge, not the EV's charger's reliability. There are also non-EV components that are giving owners fits. There's infotainment, electronic features, and that's endemic to all kinds of vehicles, whether they're hybrids, plug-in hybrids, or regular gas model cars. Electronic gremlins are one of the biggest complaints in Consumer Reports reliability surveys, and EVs aren't immune to that.
Yeah, that's a really important point. These cars today are rolling computers, and everything in the cockpit is electronic. You're finding, A, that they're not always easy to use when you sort of test them out with your own people, and number two, that in real life, they're having reliability problems.
And the problem is that so much of the car's functionality is centered around this big screen. I mean, it can control your climate system. It can control your navigation system. In some models, it controls your adjustments for all the active safety features. So relying on a screen, and people are kind of dazzled by it, like, oh, I want a car that has what looks like an iPad. And it doesn't really matter if it makes sense or not, but they're all doing it anyway. So we've got all these touch screens, and some work better than others. But the question in my mind, I think, is, are these touchscreens going to be functioning in 10 years, in 20 years? People keep their cars longer.
If there's anything you want to know about cars, new, used, hybrid, electric, gasoline-powered, how to buy one, what to look for, head to consumerreports.org, the Consumer Reports website. You will find it there. Mike Quincy is with Consumer Reports Autos. Michael, it is always a pleasure to talk to you and a lot of fun. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me on.
You know, for some, a new car is a budget buster. They need to buy a used vehicle. Straight ahead, a look at the used car market with an expert at Edmunds and how to make sure you're getting a good pre-owned vehicle. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. These come from historyfacts.com. German engineer Carl Benz is credited with designing the first practical modern vehicle back in 1885, the Benz Patent Motor Wagon, a three-wheeler with a 1.5 horsepower internal combustion engine. Top speed, 10 miles per hour. Back in the 1920s, when cars were still a luxury item, a brand new Model T Ford sold for $290. That would be about $5,000 today. A century before the Toyota Prius debuted in 1997, Ferdinand Porsche, who later founded the venerable sports car company, developed a hybrid gas-electric vehicle. It was called the Semper Vivus, Latin for always alive.
Used car prices are also getting more expensive. The average price paid for a 3-year-old vehicle in the fourth quarter of last year was $29,700 according to Edmunds. $29,700. And used car prices are expected to continue going up this year. Here to discuss the used car market, the Director of Insights at Edmunds, Ivan Drury, who is joining us from Hawaii. Hello, Ivan. Aloha.
Hey, Herb. How you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for being with us.
No problem. I'm happy to be on.
So you recently wrote, for used car shoppers who've held off on a purchase with hopes of a more stable market and stronger discounts, 2025 could prove to be a challenging environment from both selection and pricing perspectives. What's going on?
Well, we've got a few things to contend with when it comes to used car shopping. I mean, it hasn't been, let's call it normal since 2019, like many things in life. But in 2025, just when we think things are going to become kind of normal, we've got a supply side issue that is rather huge. There's going to be a deficit of off-lease vehicles to the tune of millions of units. And then there's the X factor of will there or won't there be tariffs? And on top of that, if so, how high are we talking? So we have a few different dynamics that really could shake up the used market and make buying a vehicle a lot more difficult. You really have to do a lot more homework and when it comes to homework, I mean, really penning out how much can you afford and is this the right time to buy?
People have been holding on to their cars longer, and I would assume as the prices of new cars go up, and especially if there's a gigantic increase because of tariffs, they'll hold on to their cars longer, which will mean even fewer used vehicles on the market.
This is 100% true. We've seen that the holdout buyer has essentially stayed on that sideline since 2020, 2021. The average age of the vehicle being traded in just keeps going up and up and up. And that's because people are coming back to the market, whether or not their loan is paid off. It's been 6 years, 5 years, whatever. They're seeing stuff they don't like. For those who have an option, the best decision has been not indecision, but staying away. But they can only hold out for so long. Now, the problem is that when you come back to the market today, it's nothing like you've seen before. Right? You are not going to get the same vehicle for the same price as what you're accustomed to. This is something in which first-time buyers, no context, things don't feel as bad. But if you've been buying for 2 or 3 decades, you have a certain set of expectations on price. Those won't be met.
And let's factor in the cost of borrowing money. NerdWallet just released a report that in the fourth quarter of 2024, the overall average auto loan interest rate was 6.35 for new cars and 11.62 for used cars. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about interest rates, these are rates that people now see in a very long time. And especially when you look at the average transaction price, of a new car, close to $48,000. When you look at how much you're going to spend in interest over the life of the loan, you're looking at like 9 to 10K in finance charges alone. And then on the used end, right, with interest rates being higher, and even though transaction prices are lower, it's still, in some cases, we're looking at the average of nearly $10,000 to $11,000. So, when you're buying a car, how much car are you actually buying versus are you just paying for the right to borrow?
What about used electric vehicles? Is there much of a supply in the used EV market?
We are seeing quite the uptick. Back in 2021, 2022, there were starting to see some vehicles, hit the market that weren't just Teslas, right? You started to have the Korean automakers, you had Ford, Volkswagen, Porsche. So as far as selection goes, not only is it a volume thing, but it's a brand thing. Like if you are very loyal to a certain brand, then now you can actually get a vehicle from that automaker. It's one of those things where the residual values too, they've never been good. Used vehicles, especially EVs, it's one of those things where, automakers, they know this too. It's like any other piece of tech out there. The better things get, the worse they are for the used version.
EVs come with at least a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the battery pack. Even so, would it be a good idea to have that battery pack checked before you buy the vehicle? And is that something that's easy to do?
Yeah, that's something in which, depending on what vehicle you're looking at, it could be something that's already within that infographic, large screen that you can kind of check right off the bat when it tells you how much can it charge to, how reduced is the range versus when it was new. It'll vary in complexity depending on the vehicle type, but for the most part, you want to know those numbers anyway. You want to know how close you are to flirting with a full battery replacement. Or if you're looking at something like, oh, you know what, we could be going to like another 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, things of that nature. So, it's something that you don't consider as much when it comes to an ICE vehicle. But when it comes to EVs, yeah, there is that kind of known element that the more I use this vehicle, the way I charge it, the type of charging that I apply to it, the conditions I drive it in, does have an adverse effect on its longevity. So really, it is something that you do want to be kind of top of mind because replacing batteries, it's not cheap. It's not easy.
The number one tip I have shared for decades, based on years and years of experience of dealing with people who've had horror stories, is you cannot buy a used vehicle, even if it's called certified, pre-certified, whatever it's called, unless you have it checked by an independent mechanic first. You have no idea what kind of problems you might be buying, and once you buy it, it's yours.
Yeah, this is true. Peace of mind should be top of mind. And it's one of these things where a little bit of money up front. Well, let's call it a lot of bit of money, right? $200 or $300, right? Depending on who's your mechanic, how long it's going to take them, complexity of vehicle, how thoroughly you want them to check it. It's one of these things that buying a used car is a gamble. It's a risk. Every single one of them is different. I don't care where they're sourced from. It doesn't ever get treated the same. And that is something that you want someone else who knows more than you do to have a look. At a minimum, to assuage some of your fears and some of your concerns, it can stop you from making a decision that could become very costly down the road. I know people who have bought vehicles that were relatively new, but were mishandled upon their first go around with their owner or owners. And even vehicles below 60,000 miles that have had full motor rebuilds, transmission replacements. We're not talking about cheap stuff either. So it's something in which independent inspection is good. It's not going to catch every single thing under the sun, but it's going to catch most stuff.
And don't assume a Carfax check is enough, because if it wasn't reported to insurance, it wouldn't be on Carfax. So that car could have been in an accident, which makes it unsafe to drive, and you'd never know unless a mechanic took a look and spotted the problem.
This is 100% true. There are so many instances in which you can see that someone would not want to report something, right? They don't want to ding their insurance. It might be deemed too minor by their mindset, but they're probably not somebody that works in the automotive industry and has intricate knowledge of the sensors and the safety equipment around that. They say, well, visually it looks fine, but in reality, there could be a lot of damage back there. So, looking at Carfax reports, while it is very helpful, you have to remember it can't 100% rule out any potential damage. I've seen conflicting reports in the past where even a vehicle was broken into and it was reported to the police. It was on one company's report and not on another. I've even bought a vehicle that I knew was salvage titled in one state, but was not deemed salvage title in another state where I was driving it. You really do have to get used cars vetted.
And if they won't let you do it, run away from the lot as quickly as you can.
Yeah, there's always something when someone's not willing to be forthcoming or, really upfront with you. It's the whole spidey senses thing.
Ivan Drury is Director of Insights at Edmunds. If you're looking to buy a new or used vehicle or sell your used car, you want to head to edmunds.com to get a whole lot of information. Ivan, it was really nice talking to you. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Yeah, I had a great time. I'd love to come back.
Looking forward to it. Well, that's it for this edition of Consumerpedia. We hope you'll rate the episode and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us on Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at My Consumerpedia on X, formerly Twitter. I'm Herb Weisbaum. Thank you for listening.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Seattle, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.